Okay, so we're gonna do a spray tan today. How dark is she wanting to go?
What color is best for a racist family?
I would stay right here. I wouldn't go any darker than a 6 or a 7.
Borat's subsequent movie film, or Borat 2, is obviously the sequel to the giant, massive hit that was Borat, the huge social experiment satirical comedy that came out in 2006. And y'all are probably wondering why I'm reviewing this film, because this isn't really the type of film I usually review on this channel. I usually stick to mostly indie art house type of stuff. But it might surprise y'all a little bit, but Borat is one of my favorite comedies of all time. I am a huge fan of this film, especially when it first came out. I remember watching this film in the theater, like, when I was in 6th grade. And I was obviously arguably way too young to watch that film when it came out. But nevertheless, it became one of my favorite comedies ever made. I think I rewatched it last year, and it was still as funny as I remember. I found it to be an absolute laugh riot, and just an incredibly genius social satire and social experiment type film where Sacha Baron Cohen is just excellent at creating these scenarios that expose people for what they are. And I remember watching Who is America, I think that came out last year, which was one of Sacha Baron Cohen's HBO specials. And honestly, that was some of the most brilliant television that I've ever seen in my entire life. I honestly think it's a bit underrated and should be talked about a lot more, because every episode of that was just pure gold and just pure cringe and insanity into just how far he can make people go with his antics. And it's really something to behold, and it's quite unlike anything you'll ever see. So obviously, with all of that being taken into consideration, when I heard that there was going to be a Borat sequel coming out incredibly soon, because this kind of came out of nowhere. Most people had no idea that Sacha had this in store, and all of a sudden everybody got this news that he had already screened this film to people and was going to come out in October, and everybody was like, holy shit, everybody's brains exploded. And I obviously had gigantic expectations going into this film, and I started getting just a little bit worried, because one reoccurring thing that I kept hearing from people is that they kept saying that it's not as good as the first one. It's not as good as the first one. Yeah, it's good, but it's not as good as the first one. And I also kept hearing that, a lot of these jokes, even though they're funny now, are going to be extremely dated within the next decade or so. So, I kind of had my worries with those criticisms that I have heard. But let me say this about this film before I really address any of that. This film was absolutely fucking hilarious. I mean, this I found to be a laugh riot, just like the first one. And honestly, I don't know which one that I laugh at more, because I was laughing the entire time with Borat 2. I think maybe the first one was a bit funnier, because I feel like that one had less misses. Like, I feel like almost every single joke in Borat 1 just completely landed. Borat 2, the vast majority of them land, and they're hilarious, but I think there are very few moments that I feel like maybe fell a little bit flat. But I'm only comparing this to like something that I think is like the golden standard of comedy, so that is a little bit unfair. Either way, I think that this is an incredibly strong follow-up to the first one. And yet again, Sacha finds so many different ways to get people to do these absolutely insane things. And not only get them to do insane things, but just is constantly pushing their limits and seeing how much he can get away with before they just decide they're not going to do something anymore, or not go along with whatever show was happening. And yeah, there's a lot of this that is super cringe. And I mean, there's some shit in here. There was one thing in particular that I can remember that involved this dancing scene at this kind of like elite conservative Christian Mason Lodge kind of place. And that dance scene was just like, I couldn't even look at the screen half the time, because I was just like, oh my god, what the fuck is he doing? I can't believe he's doing this shit. And there are many moments like that in this film, where you're just like, it feels like a task to actually put your eyes on the screen because of just how far he is willing to go. The whole Rudy Giuliani thing in this film, which is basically like the ending to this movie, or like the last big act of this film, that's as good as you hear it is, because just the way all of that unfolds just kind of exposes the kind of slime ball that we always knew he was. And it was really hard and cringy to watch, but it was also just felt really refreshing to see Sasha just get these kinds of people that we always suspect as just these kind of gross people, and for him to actually like get something like that on camera is just, it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping.
I don't know, his excuse right now was that he was tucking in his shirt, which is like, come on, dude. Like, okay, you were tucking in your shirt in your crotchal region for a long period of time. Okay, I had no idea people tuck their shirts in like that for that long. And Sasha also has a co-star of this film. I believe her name is Maria Bakalova. She is like, obviously Sasha picked somebody who not only has the talent to be a really convincing actor, but somebody who is obviously fully willing to put themselves in incredibly embarrassing situations. And not only that, but hold their cool the entire time. Because I've always wondered how the hell Sasha does that. Like, how does he keep that poker face the entire time? I have no idea. I couldn't even do that. I don't even think I could pull off even the slightest bit of comedy in a movie without just laughing. So, huge amount of props and respect to her, because she does a lot of crazy shit in this film as well that is really admirable in my opinion. And yes, this film is incredibly relevant to everything that is happening in 2020. I'm sure that, as people said, that's going to cause this film to be a bit dated, like a few years down the road. And, it might. They probably do have a good point when they say that. But I do think a lot of the current issues that we are dealing with are still going to be relevant at a future time. So, yeah, there might be a handful of jokes that, are going to fly over people's heads maybe way down the line because it's just not with the time. But I still think a lot of these political issues and social issues and topics are definitely going to lay over to whatever period of time that people watch this film in the future. So, the whole idea behind that this film is going to suffer from being dated, like, I can get, but for me, I feel like it's not going to be as dated as I think a lot of people are really emphasizing it's going to be. Because I think regardless, all of the crazy social experiment stuff is still going to hit, regardless if you even know who these people are or what these subjects are that they're talking about. It's still going to really produce a lot of laughs out of people and a lot of shock and a whole bunch of cringe. But one thing that I will say about this film is that I kind of wish Sasha would attack all of the establishment, because this film was obviously geared towards targeting the establishment Republicans, which is fine because, I would consider myself to be pretty far to the left, especially when it comes to more economic issues. I just think that it would have been nice to see all of the establishment get attacked, because in my opinion, it's not just one part of the establishment that's the problem. It's everybody. It's all the players in the game. It's everybody who is, taking millions of dollars from corporate America and using that to bribe Congress. It's everybody that's doing the corporations bidding, the top 1%'s bidding, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And I kind of wish that he would have targeted and exposed and embarrassed everybody that was a part of the establishment instead of just focusing on the Republicans. Even though I do get why he probably did that, and it's probably just because, the Republicans have more power right now, and he feels like it's more important to kind of target them and embarrass and expose them. So I can kind of see why he went that route. But for me, like, I view all of the establishment as a threat, so it would have been a bit nicer to see him take on everybody and not just only one side. But one thing that I actually think is superior to the first Borat is I actually like the story and the character arcs in this film a little bit more. Because the first one has just a really flat out silly story that really doesn't have much meaning or purpose. It's just kind of there because you need to have a story for the film. But here I felt like the story actually had like meaningful character arcs, even though like, you know, they're not like the most insanely insightful things ever. They're not like revolutionary, but I felt like they were a bit more meaningful than the ones that were present in the first Borat. So that was something that was kind of a surprise to me. But there's one segment in this film where he stays like a whole week with these far-right conspiracy theorists. And I do like that the film, in my opinion, kind of gave them humanity. Like, even though if you think, you know, they have these insane beliefs and what they think is going on with the elite and what they think of the Democrats and all these, insane conspiracy theories that they have and believe in, they seem like genuinely honest and good-hearted people. And they seem like people that I would just have fun hanging out with, even though they do kind of have these batshit beliefs and are obviously like have a different ideology than I do. But in my opinion, it kind of gave that side of the spectrum a bit more humanity. I'm not sure if everybody saw it that way or is going to agree with that, but that's kind of the way I saw it. And I wouldn't even emphasize the point that this one isn't as good as the first one. Because even though I don't necessarily believe it's as good as the first one, I don't think it deserves to be described in that way. Because it gives people the false impression that, you know, it's like largely lesser in merit. And to me, it's really not. Like this, I could see people liking this one more than the first one. And it's just because it still delivers on everything that you would want a Sacha Baron Cohen movie to hit on, especially a sequel to Borat, which was by far his biggest film and his biggest success.
High five!
And I think that he did an incredible job with this film. And I think for him to craft a follow-up to one of his biggest films, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectations to meet. And I think he did an excellent job meeting those expectations and really giving everybody everything that they would want out of a Borat sequel. So I'm going to give Borat subsequent Moviefilm a 9 out of 10. I know some people might think that's too high of a grade, but I just think he really did an incredible job. Sacha Baron Cohen is just one of the better comedians we still have working today, who does incredibly important stuff, to be honest. And for those who haven't checked out Who is America, please find a way to watch that. There's a lot of different episodes, and I promise you it will not let you down. Every episode is just absolutely mind-blowing. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the Borat sequel, please give this video a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.